So I take this opportunity to welcome every one of you to this particular class. Those who are joining us today, this is communication and writing skills. And we are going to focus on topic 6, reading skills. My name is David Maina. When you talk about reading, reading is a very, very important skill. Because reading, we do reading for various reasons. Sometimes we read for entertainment. Sometimes we do reading for getting information. Sometimes we do reading to kill boredom. Sometimes we do reading, keep ourselves busy and uncover and discover some things through reading. We also use reading as part of enhancing our knowledge. We want to enhance our knowledge. We want to develop what we already know. We want to understand it better than we do. So reading is very important. It's very important because realize if you cannot read something, when you look at many plans, when people are planning for something, it first of all starts with putting it down in paper. Once it is put down in paper, then we can understand it better. Even the builders of houses, even the mechanics, even the innovators and creators, you realize that when they start doing something or they want to create something or to innovate something, they start with paperwork. So therefore, reading, being able to understand what has been put down on paper is very important. So then we ask ourselves, what is reading? So reading is actually a process of interpreting written symbols and comprehending their meaning. It involves a complex interaction between text, the reader's prior knowledge, the context in which the text is read. Remember, context is the environment. So when you talk about reading, it is a process of interpreting written symbols. For example, in WhatsApp, we communicate using symbols, emojis, or we call them emoticons. They symbolizes the kind of pain or the emotions that you are going through. If you are happy, there is an emoji that shows happiness. If you are bored, there is an emoji that shows boredom. So you are able to read and interpret those symbols. You are able to read and interpret the text. Not only reading and interpreting, but comprehending their meaning. It involves complex interaction between texts, the reader prior knowledge, because the reader can have a knowledge about something. Because if you interpret something, then you have a knowledge about certain emoji. You have a knowledge about something, the reader's prior knowledge and the context in which it is read. Context is the environment. Some things, when you say them in a different environment, they mean something totally different. Like when you talk about a hustler is a word that can mean something totally different. A hustler can mean a person who wakes up in the morning, during the day, goes down or wakes up early in the morning, do everything possible to make ends meet. Hustler, when it is used in a different environment, it may mean a swindler. If it can be used in a different environment, it can also mean a travel girl. Travel girl is not a very important, it's not a very good name. You can go find out what it means. It can also mean a prostitute, the name hustler. So all those things, when you use that name in different environment, then you'll be able to understand what a person meant. Like, for example, in communication skills, most of the exams you'll find that you've been given a passage to read. Then after reading the passage, there are some terms you're supposed to define. Of course, you're not defining these terms the way you know them. Like for example, someone can tell you, define the word perambulate. Now, of course, we know the word perambulate, what it means. We know what it means. For the word galvanting, we know the word galvanting, what it means. But now, we are not asking you to tell us what it means from your own point of view. We are telling you from the passage, the way that word has been used, from that context, can you explain its meaning? Some students fail in that. You are explaining it the way you understand it, but not the way it is being used in the text. That's why in every paper for communication skills, the clue I'm giving you, you'll find a comprehension to read. There'll be some questions after the comprehension to actually test your reading skills. Next thing, let's look at the importance of reading. One of the importance of reading is it develops the mind and knowledge. It develops the mind and knowledge. You're able to get knowledge from other people. Like if you want to start a business, we look for books talks about starting a business. And when you are reading that book, you'll be able to have knowledge of how to start various businesses. Number two, it helps us to improve our spelling and grammar. These people are not reading. People, they would rather watch TikTok, would rather act some few things, some few acting on TikTok. They would rather watch movies, not read. That's why you find that people's grammar has deteriorated to some extent. When you tell someone to write the word professionalism, it will have grammatical errors. When you tell someone to write the word, this simple word, exercise, it has got errors. There I received a text from a student, and the student was saying, thank you, the problem has been rectified. The way he has written the word rectified, my friend, you wonder whether this one is a kindergarten student or who, okay, there is what we call spelling mistakes. So once you read, you improve on your grammar. The way you write, the way you speak, it improves completely. It gives self-confidence, it improves understanding. Once you know how to read, it gives you a self-confidence. There was a time when I was a student like you, we were invited for an interview. The interview was conducted somewhere along Mombasa Road, one of the call centers. One of the main things that people were told to do, we were around 30 people in that interview, and they only needed one person from the 30. One of the things that they tell you to do, one of the interview, is that they tell you to read a certain piece of paper. They tell you, read for us. Because they know people don't know how to read. They know very well people don't know how to articulate things. They don't know how to say things the way they are put on in written format. So it gives you a self-confidence and it improves your understanding. You are able to understand things. You are able to read with confidence because you know you are capable. It helps us discover new things, very true. It didn't help us discover new things. For example, you want to know the budget that will be read this June. It will be on Thursday, this Thursday. You want to know what will happen. What is the government saying? And what are some of the things that have been proposed? That their prices will go up, the prices of items that will go up and those the ones that will go down. You want to discover, find out. You are doing a research, you want to discover how this one came about, or how do we get a vaccine for this kind of a disease. So reading, you need to go to what we call the books, read, discover new things. It also helps develop imagination and creativity power. Now, from all the reading that we are doing in high school, there was this particular unit, we were calling it composition writing. Why were we being told to write compositions? Because they want to see your imagination. Can you be imaginative enough? For example, somebody may tell you, write a composition on my worst day, or my favorite food. They want to see how imaginative are you, and where does imagination come from? It comes from reading a lot of. If you are that kind of a person who never read storybooks, you will keep on repeating. The food was githeri until the end. I remember one teacher was marking a composition, and it was a KCPE, Kenya Certificate of Primary Education composition. And when he opened one booklet, the student had only repeated, the question was, my favorite color. The student repeated that word, my favorite color, my favorite color, my favorite color, word, until the end. Because the student was not imaginative enough and creative. Number 6, reading, it helps us differentiate between good and bad. You're able to differentiate that this one is good, this one is bad, because you are reading. Also, reading, it helps us create a curiosity, know about future. You want to know about the future. You want to know what will happen next. So you read a lot of books. You read current books, not old books. Also, it helps us in experience of others. You are able to gain an experience of others, especially these books, we call them motivational books, or motivational books. You are able to read about someone's experience, then you are able to avoid what he did, if it was a mistake, and embrace what they did. They did whatever they did, and they became successful. Those are some of the importance of reading. We have so many importance of reading apart from those. Preparing for reading. When you prepare for reading, there are 3 preparations. Number 1, we usually have psychological preparation. Number 2, we usually have emotional preparation. Number 3, we have what we call physiological preparation. Let's start with number 1, psychological preparation. When we talk about psychological preparation, what are we saying? Actually, what is psychological preparation? Psychological preparation is preparing your minds. Preparing your minds. Preparing your mind, now I am going to read. That is getting rid of anything that can hinder understanding. Example, conflicting ideas. Sometimes things that may hinder your understanding, maybe your telephone, your phone, you switch it off. It may be your friends, especially these friends that come to visit you without even telling you. You hear a gate is being knocked. When you go there, you find that it is your friend, and you had prepared that day, I'm going to read. Get rid of anything that can hinder your understanding, including your phone. Especially when you're reading for your exams, I think your phone should be switched off. Just have an ample time to interact with the text or the notes that you have been writing. Next thing is what we call emotional preparation. Emotional preparation. You need to prepare yourself emotionally. Over excitement, anger, remorsefulness or stress should be put under control. These emotions should be at equilibrium, maintain sobriety. How can overexcitement makes you not to read? I'll give you a small story about a student that I know very well. A certain student was very good in biology. This student would get an A or a B in biology from Form 1 to Form 4. He could get any paper they would do, he would get an A or a B, at least a B. Now, one day, they were doing a biology paper. The student was seated close to a window. And from the window, you could see the school. Now, as they were doing this particular paper, it happened that the parent came to the school unannounced. The parent did not tell the student, his child, that I am coming to school. As the student was doing the paper, he happened to see the parent coming from the school gate. The student was very excited to a point that he wrote this biology paper very fast. Within 30 minutes, he was done doing the biology paper. When the result came out, so that the student can rush to the parent, meet the parent. This one was a boarding school. The following day, the results were out. To say the truth, the best student who could get an A or a B was the last student. What went wrong? Student told the teacher, this is what happened. I saw my parent, so I could not concentrate with what I was doing. And I think that is the problem. The student was caned. The student was told, can you receipt this paper? The student sat for the paper again. The student got an A. In other words, I'm trying to prove to you that when you are overexcited, this one can make you not understand what you're doing. It can make you not concentrate with what you are reading or what you are reading. Also, anger. Anger is very bad because suppose you are angry, somebody has made you angry and you are preparing to read. Your mind will be very disturbed. For you to concentrate, it's going to make you, actually it's going to take a lot of time for you to cool down until you get to that particular normal position or point. Remorsefulness. When we are remorseful, we cannot concentrate. Suppose you are reading for an exam paper, then you receive a very sad news about a friend or about your relative. You become so remorseful, you cannot concentrate, even when we are stressed up. Remember a day I was reading for my exam and my parent had not paid school fees for me. I was reading for the exam, not knowing whether I would sit for the exam or not. School fees was not paid. That is stress. I could not concentrate on that particular. So stress is not good, can make you not concentrate. All these things should be put at equilibrium. Maintain that sobriety. For you to be sober, them at equilibrium. I think we are done with what we call we have emotional preparation. The other one is I think the other one is physiological preparation. We have looked at psychological preparation. We have looked at emotional preparation. And I don't know that I covered that one. When you talk about psychological preparation, physiological preparation, psychological Physiological preparation simply means that when you're going to read, prepare yourself. Prepare, for example, make sure that the environment is clean. Make sure that your environment is clean. Make sure that the table or where you're going to sit reading is conducive. There is enough air. Ensure that you have eaten very well. Ensure that you have taken your breakfast, because that is a physiological preparation. Because if you're not prepared very well, you will not concentrate at all. You will be yawning the whole day. Also dress properly. Look for a comfortable seat where you can sit. A seat that you can sit for long, because reading takes time. It can take even 4 hours reading, even 5 hours reading. Depending on your concentration, there are people who have very long span of concentration. The majority have a very short span of concentration. So then look for a comfortable place. Apart from that, we move to what we call types of reading. So there are 3 types of reading. The one type of reading is what we call skimming. What is skimming? Skimming is the reading skill whereby the reader runs through a given written material looking for keywords, also looking for phrases, or looking for sentences or paragraphs with an aim to come up with an overview of the content. When you go to the library, you pick a book, you're asking for, maybe for example, writing skills book, communication and writing skills books. You'll be given several books. But now, for you to pick the right book, you have to look at the table of content. To check what does this book cover. Looking at the table of content, you'll be able to know this one covers most of the topics that I need. So this is the right book. These other ones do not cover most of the topics that I need. So you leave them out. That is a very good example of skimming. We can give an example here, which is written here. Suppose you are researching a topic for an essay or report. Might skim through the multiple articles by reading the headings, reading the subheadings, the introductory and concluding paragraphs, identify key ideas, identify key arguments, and the overall stance of each article. Now this one, it helps you decide which article are most relevant and should be read more thoroughly. That's a very good example of skimming. But actually looking at, it's giving you the main idea what the book is all about, so that at least you can take it. Before you go to the library to borrow a book, I think that is what we do. You just look at the table of content, read the back page, read the introduction, the conclusion, the subtopics, the topics, then you say this is the right book. Then that is skimming. Then we go to what we call scanning. Scanning, a reader runs quickly through an article document, through an entire document, looking for some specific information, and he stops as soon as you find it. You stop as soon as you find it. For example, imagine that you are searching for a specific recipe in a book or in a cookbook. Maybe you want to prepare what we call chapatis. So you are looking for a recipe, how to prepare chapatis or mandazis. So you go to the library, ask them for a cookbook. So you are going through the cookbook very fast. The moment you find how to prepare mandazi or chapati, that is where you stop. Now you start looking at the process, the recipe, and so on and so forth. So you would scan the table of content or index, find the recipe page number, scan through the recipe article or title, until you find the ones you are looking for. It's as simple as that. Scanning, you're looking at a specific thing. Skimming, want to know whether this book will be able to do what? Serve your needs. So you look at the subheadings, topics, subtopics, the introduction, the conclusion, looking at all that. That is skimming. Scanning, you're looking for a specific thing. And a very good example, suppose you are looking for something, you are searching for a specific recipe in a cookbook. You will only go to the table of content. Once you find how to prepare mandazi, go to the page number, then you go and look at the recipe and the process, the ingredients that you need. That is what we call scanning. Lastly, look at reading technique number 3, which is study reading. Now, study reading, one thing that you must note is that study reading is done mostly when you are reading for understanding. You are reading for understanding purposes, especially if you are reading for an exam. We use study reading. Now, here you are told, examine or try to diagnose idea or subject to gain deeper understanding of the concept. The recommended method for study reading is SQ3R method. Kindly note that word, SQ3R. S means what? We have one S, and we have one Q, and we have 3 R's. Read, recite, revise. So this is a study reading technique. When you talk about survey, it means what? Survey means that before you go to the library, or when you go to the library, you need to survey the materials. Like you need a book for communication skills. And you are given like 10 books. You need to survey all those materials. To help you to know the depth, the scope of coverage, the relevance to you, the relevance to the study that you want to do. Survey is when you are given a lot of, then you look at them, find how depth in terms of scope, they cover what you need, they have what you want. It is surveying. Number 2, question, what am I reading about? You need to question yourself. Now that I have got material that I need, what am I going to read about? I read about nonverbal communication. I read on the types of nonverbal communication. To make brief notes of ideas. You need to question yourself. Once you have questioned yourself and you have said, you're going to read about nonverbal communication, then you must write some short notes like, what is nonverbal communication? What are the different types of nonverbal communication? Then read the material now. See at the back of your mind, or maybe in a book, you have written the questions that are lingering in your mind. The questions that you are asking yourself in your mind, you have put them down. Once you have put them down in a book or in a piece of paper, then interact with the material. Interacting with the material is reading now the book. Read now that particular book. After reading and reading and reading and reading, and finishing on that particular topic, then you need to recite, to recall. How do you do it? Remember, you had written some questions. Like, for example, what is nonverbal communication? The different types of nonverbal communication, importance of nonverbal communication, the advantages of nonverbal communication. Then you go to the book to read. And after reading, recite. Reciting or recalling, or asking yourself, what have I understood? Now that I have read a topic on nonverbal communication, can I be able to explain what is nonverbal communication? Of course, you need to have a rough. Ask yourself, what is nonverbal communication? Then you answer it. If you can answer it very well, then you are good. What are types of nonverbal communication? You list them down. If you can list them down, all of them, you are good. And what are some of the importance of nonverbal communication? You can only remember 3 out of 10. What do? You revise, go back, interact with the material again. I can only remember 3 advantages of nonverbal communication. Go back. Find out the 7 others. Read until you understand. So once you understand, you go back again to the paper. I be able to remember the 10 types, or the 10 advantages of nonverbal communication, and you list them down. If you can't remember, go back again. See, you are reciting, you are recalling. You are reading, citing, recalling, revising. Revise when you you have forgotten something. So you read, recite, revise. How accurate are you in your understanding? That is revising. You need to be accurate. Most of the time, that is what we do. Some people read notes as like you are reading novels. Others, they go to the library with a rough. After reading a certain topic, you sit down, you start now recalling. I have read about maybe, for example, reading skills. What are the 3 types of reading? You can remember study reading, you can remember scanning, you can remember skimming. Can you be able to define and to differentiate between the 3 of them? Yes, by defining them. You can write, you can explain. Then it comes to study reading technique, SQR. 3R SQ, or SQ 3R. The R, there are 3, SQ 3R. Can you remember all the SQ3, the SQ and read, SQ, the 3Rs? If you can't remember, go back until you get it right. Why are we doing this? We are doing this, remember. We are doing this so that even if an exam comes from that area, we'll have understood everything. Having said that, move to the next thing, barriers to effective reading. Various barriers to effective reading. We're going to go through all of them. We'll go through all of those barriers to effective reading. We start with number 1, emotional barriers. Emotional barriers, there are many. And under emotional barriers, we have fear. People who fear when it comes to reading. Like, you remember that example I told you when we were called for an interview? There are people who could not even read properly. You wonder, what is happening to people? Why can't they pronounce words the way they are written there? Is it so difficult to read? So it was not so difficult to read, but he had what we call fear. How will people say about me? Fear of criticism, judgment. Don't want people to criticize you. Don't want people to tell you that word is not read as Foebe. It's written as Phoebe. You call it, this is how you say it. You say it Phoebe. Oh, don't read it as Foebe. Don't read it as Kukumba. You read it as Kamba. You don't want to be criticized. So students are often afraid of criticism they will receive from teachers. They are afraid of criticism they will receive from parents. Also afraid of criticism that they will receive from their fellow students. They do not do well in reading. For some students, this fear is so great that they would rather not try to succeed and risk having take the criticism. You want people to criticize the way you read, how you articulate words. Fear of failure. Another fear is fear of failure. Some students would rather, or some students rather than being afraid of the criticism comes with not succeeding, they are afraid of failure itself. If a student has repeatedly experienced failure in the past, then get the idea that they will always fail, and therefore they do not bother trying. The way you tried to do mathematics, failed for once, failed twice, failed thrice, until you now realize, failure is my name. So when they are calling for 0, you know, my name must be there. Fear of rejection is also another fear called rejection. Besides the fear of criticism, the fear of failure, some students are more afraid of rejection by their peers. Some students are afraid that if they fail, they will not do as school as their friends, they will not fit in that particular group. You know, in high school, we had this group of people who are very good in reading. You do not want to interact with them simply because they are good. So you'll find that those who are not good in reading have their own group. Those who are performing well have their own group. That's not the best way to do things, because those who fail will always fail. Those who do well will always do well. And there is also another one, we call it shame. Shame. Now, there is also, apart from shame, shame is under what we call fear, emotional barriers. Have emotional sensitivity, people who are sensitive. Actually, shame is, we will not call it fear, but shame. You are ashamed of reading. You are ashamed of others. I think shame and fear, one is a brother to the other. You are ashamed of your friends. You are ashamed of your parents. You cannot read for them. Emotional sensitivity, people who are very emotional. When you tell them something, you tell them that that word is not read like that. They become so emotional. They say, they leave the book and they tell you, even you can read. Mwenye unajiona unajua sana. You can also read. Emotional sensitivity. We also have adjusting to change. Adjusting to change, it relates with reading. Especially when you look at people who went to school up country, vis-a-vis those who came to school in town, in the urban sectors. The way they read is totally different. A person who comes from up country, even reading words, find that they have a difficulty in reading. These people who come from urban sectors or urban areas are very good. Are very good, and the confidence is usually, majority of them, confidence is at its peak. So these people who come from, some of the people who come from the rural areas, you have to adjust to change so that they can catch up with this kind of reading, the urban sectors, so that they can be at par of them. Next point is motivational barriers. Like, for example, lack of goal. Just gone to the library, you don't have any goal. So you pick a book just for the sake of, okay, I am in the library, for people to see that I'm in the library. Lack of a goal. You have just gone to the library because you did not have a goal, and your friend also did not have a goal to read anything. Start using the library's Wi-Fi and making noise and doing things that are not good. Procrastination is another one, and the motivational barriers. Procrastination is you decide to read last minute. Procrastination is saying, even tomorrow is a day. Even next week is a day. We still have time. So read. This one is 2 hours. Even when the exam is about to be done, the next 3 hours, you still say, we still have time. I will read in the next, after that, in the next 30 minutes. Before you notice, the exam is on your desk. And you just fail like that. Procrastination. Properly arranged reading material is another one, especially students who write on full scarps. Write on papers, then you go and put them in 5. You find 3, 4, 6, 4, 5, 6, 10, 12, 19 are missing. These are improperly arranged material. Or maybe you did not number them, so you don't know which one is coming after the other. When you read reading skills, the next page that follows is about nonverbal communication. And there is, actual sense, the stories are not sequencing. The notes are not sequencing the way they are supposed to sequence. We also have what we call learning disabilities. Remember, these are called learning disabilities. Learning disabilities. So these disabilities relate to particular functions of the brain. These disabilities relate to particular functions of the brain, which controls speech. You know, there is that part of the brain that controls speech. So reading and writing demands. For example, we have what we call Down syndrome. We have cerebral palsy. Cerebral palsy is that disease that affects spinal. You find that that child is there, that child is not okay. Cerebral palsy. Blindness, among others, are some of the causes of disabilities affecting reading, learning. We can also have other examples like what we call dyslexia. Dyslexia, here the person has difficulty understanding the written word. Cannot understand what is written. You cannot understand. Okay, you can see, but you cannot understand what is written. If you see somebody who cannot understand what is written, not that he is illiterate, but he may be suffering from what we call dyslexia. We also have what we call dysgraphia. Dysgraphia, the person may be having or have difficulties forming letters when writing. That person, when writing, cannot form letters. Writes things that you cannot understand. Maybe like doodling, drawing circles, lines. The person has difficulties forming letters when writing. And lastly, we have what we call dyscalculia. Dyscalculia, the person has difficulties understanding mathematics. Now, when I see this dyscalculia, maybe some of us suffered this particular disease when we were in high school. Dyscalculia. We had difficulties in understanding mathematics totally. Majority of us, you look at their KCSE certificates, find that the grades are very amazing, interesting grades. Maybe we were suffering from dyscalculia. The person has difficulties understanding mathematics. So other barriers of effective reading may include lack of time. Yeah, this one can be another barrier. You don't have time to read. You are a person who works in a hotel and you work in shift, work during the day, or maybe you work the whole day. So when you're coming back in the house, you're very tired, you cannot read, don't have that time to read. So when it comes to exam, only spare like a whole day trying to read notes for a whole semester, notes for the whole semester. My friend, actually you stand a chance of failing greatly because of lack of time. Reluctance, being reluctant, saying, we still have time. Still have time. These notes, we have 10 pages notes. I want them to be like 50 or 60. Then you find that time has caught up with you and you're not able to do what? Revise properly. Then there is also what we call lack of concentration. Lack of concentration comes in so many ways. You cannot concentrate. See, reading requires you to psychologically prepare yourself. Things that are that can bring about what we call disturbances, them very far, like phones, so on and so forth. Environmental barriers, this one includes background noises, this one includes locations, etc., etc. These are called environmental barriers. Unless there is I will not ask questions now. Those are what we call have talked about emotional barriers, fear, shame, emotional sensitivity, adjusting to change. Motivational barriers, we have looked at them. I've also looked at environmental barrier, learning disability, dyslexia, dysgraphia, dyscalculia. And we've looked at lack of time. We've looked at reluctance, lack of concentration, environmental barriers like background noise, location, etc., etc. Now, how do you improve your reading skills? This is how you improve your reading skills. For one, you need to have a clear reading goal. When you go to the library, or coming from home, have a clear reading goal that today I'm going to the library. See, you decide that maybe, for example, day in the evening, you decide tomorrow morning, I'm going to the library. By 8 a.m., I must be in the library. And I'm going to read two things. I will read Introduction to Computers from 8 to 11, from 8 to 12. Then from 1 to 4, I will read Communication Skills, and I'm going to tackle topic 1 and 2. You must have a clear reading goal. And reading goals can be an easy or seminar subject. It can be a report brief. It can be a selected subject area. It can be a series of questions about specific topics. Number 2, choose the right text. So when you go to the library, of course, if you have notes, well and good for you. But if you don't have notes, choose the right text. To the library, choose the right book. So you will need to assess the text to see if it contains information that is relevant to your reading goals. Check the date of publication, the information up to date. Don't start reading about abacus, Introduction to Computers. You're supposed to be reading about artificial intelligence. Look at the information. Is there information up to date? Read the publisher's blurb, the back or inside sleeves of the book. So after doing all that, next thing is use the right reading style. Don't use scanning. You should be using study reading skill as a technique. Use the right reading style. Next point, you're supposed to take notes. Don't just go there with a book. Use note-taking techniques. So once you have selected a useful information, you can begin to read in details. Note-taking techniques provide a useful aid to reading. You can use the following: the underlining and highlighting, where you have understood. Questions, question yourself, do a summary of what you have read, so on and so forth. Therefore, what are we saying? We're saying, set aside time for each day, like the way we used to create time for everything. Now, we were in high school, we used to have a timetable, reading timetable. But on Monday, we'll be tackling biology. On Tuesday, we'll be reading physics. On Wednesday, it's chemistry. On Thursday, English. On Friday, we'll be looking at, maybe for example, CRE. So set aside time, read each day. Part 2, set reading goals. Have goals. Don't say that I will read the whole chemistry book on Monday. You cannot finish. You will say, I'm going to tackle maybe elements. I'm going to tackle maybe, for example, those things, you remember them. Review the text you read. Go back to what you have read. Review. So the reason why you are previewing is to understand. Determine the purpose of a particular text. Apply the key reading strategies, that the ones that we have looked at: scanning, the skimming, and the study reading. Take notes while you read. Apply what you read. Summarizing. Summarize. What have I read today? Today, I've read about introduction, communication. I've read about week 2, verbal communication. I've read about this. Summarize. Because when you summarize, it actually means that you can remember everything. Like, for example, if you can remember a topic on a verbal communication, you can summarize the subtopics that are there. It simply tells you that you remember everything. If you cannot summarize, it means you cannot remember anything. So apply what you read, summarizing. So unless there is a question, I stop at that point.